Hello everyone, welcome to Medas Bridge. Let us learn SQL. A structured query language is also known as SQL. Visit us at our YouTube channel Medas Bridge. Please subscribe the channel if yet to be. Thanks for your support. Here is the today's agenda.
In this session, we're gonna see how a database table is going to create, and then what is a SQL syntax that we have to use to create it and all. Okay, but in the previous session, I think what we have seen is that how you can create a database. Database and schema in the context of MySQL are interchangeable, right? Sometimes we call it as a schema, sometimes you call it as a database. In MySQL world, both are kind of interchangeable. Let's not get confused. Uh, Whereas in other databases, yes, there is a small difference which we already covered in previous session, but in the following sessions we can get into more details. For now, you just assume that when you're gonna create a database, what we have to use like a create schema and a table name in our database name. In our case is like we used Metasbridge as a database which we created. Okay, you could see in my screen, Metasbridge is a what you can call it as highlighted and the with the bold, that means like is a active database which is selected. Okay, what are the commands that I'm running here which gonna actually execute against this database instance, not the other one. That means okay. And then when we create a database, we have a what you can call it as a placeholders for the tables, views, stored procedures and functions. These are the placeholders, but I have not yet created either the tables or the views or no stored procedures. Okay, so what that means is like I'm sure I know that like there is no table that I created, but my question would be now, is there any way that I can yes, through SQL statement can I actually find out like how many tables or the list of the tables within my database instance? Is it possible? Yes, we do. So that's what I think I'm referring here, like you just show tables. This is like if you say that show table as a statement and then execute the statement, it populates all the tables that are there in that database. In our cases, like since we didn't actually created any databases yet, I mean tables yet, so what we see as a result for this show tables query is nothing, none, right? Tables in Metaspace is empty space. You got it, right? So I think we also spoke about this, action output, whatever the command that we are going to execute means like fire against that table, then the result will be displayed in the result window, and then the action output basically tells you like what command you executed, what SQL statement that you executed at what time, and then what is the status. Green means a successful, and then other color like a red means like probably the error. The error also can see in on the this action window in that case. All right. So this is a kind of like a ground that I wanted to let you bring along with me so that we can see the following topics. Before I start jumping to create a database table, let's try understand the concept of table, right, in database. Tables are essentially an objects in database where we store information and data. So tables basically we use for actually storing the information, right? After database instance created, we will start designing of database by creating tables with respect to business requirement, all the tables with respect to business requirement. What this means, like when the minute that you have a requirement, you try understand the requirement, analyze the requirement, figure that out, like how many tables that are needed to fulfill the requirement, and also find out a relationship among them and establish the relationship. This is all I think, that the kind of a thought process that one should have when we're actually, working on like a designing a database or creating a tables of the database, right? So now coming to a point is what is mean by table? How do I understand what things can be translated into my table? All right, this kind of an idea that we have. So table means table is the one where we are actually storing the information, isn't it? Let's say for example you are trying to create a student table. So student table, student is a table name, right? You are naming the table as a student to be created. So what sort of information that you're gonna store in the table? In a student table, student might be having a student id, student might be having his or her name, right? Student has a AS, student might might be registered for a course, student has awarded with some kind of grade, student has a contact phone number, isn't it? So these are called as a attributes for that student as a table. So we can also call it as a column, attribute or field. Okay, all vertical lines are called as columns in the table, because the table is nothing but like a combination of rows and columns. You agree? So that is how you have to see that. Now what I'm saying is that uh, student name, age, course, grade, phone number are the attributes which are like vertical columns, right? Column means like vertical anyway. These are also called as field. There is a significant meaning for this, every attribute. Each attribute has a domain that specifies a type of value that we store. What that means is, let's say student id. What is this student id means? You want to store a number, right? Every student has unique student id given by that college. Agree? So then that is unique number, means like no two students have the same number, right? So and then this is again a number, integer value, right? So you try understand the domain of each in attribute. The student id should supposed to be like an integer. So you assume that student id is now of integer data type, is going to store the integer value. Like a name, what is a domain for this name? Name is like a string, right? A character set. We can also call it as a varchar in the context of mysql. So varchar is a data type, right? Of which we have to declare for a name, so that name is now is able to actually store the variable character. The reason for saying variable character, you can have like a length of characters can be vary based out of the the size of the name that you are going to store in it. You can still specify you need a 10 character length reservation or 20 character length. Those things can be specified during the table creation. Similarly, age is an integer, course is a varchar, grade is a varchar, right? Phone number is like an integer. So we have the rows, we have the columns, group of like a rows and columns together to form a table. So that's why the representation of table meaning, right? So table is a database table in our constants. Every column is called a field, an attribute. You need to understand the domain of that particular attribute. Okay, these are also called as like a data types. Are you with me? Since we now got some kind of a clarity on like what is meant by database table, let's now get into a SQL statement, how you have to represent SQL statement to create a database table. Create table is a kind of a keyword, which means like this statement basically tells you like to create a new table in your database. Here is the general form. Okay, create table and a table name, right? So within which you have to specify like all the columns separated by the comma, but along with the column you have to define the data type, a domain that applies for this particular column. Got it? So that's it. So this is how I think you can create a database table in a database. I hope you got me right. Thank you. Let's say for instance, since we discussed about a create table for the students. These are the attributes that we chosen. We also discussed about like a data type, that are applicable for these attributes as a domain. Okay, so if I could actually execute this entire command on your SQL query tab of, okay, in a workbench, right? Definitely it is gonna successfully executed. If it executes successfully, then what you could see is like you could see a table created on your active database. For instance, look at this MySQL database under which I see the tables. Below the table I could see students as a table name, and then within the students I can see like a columns, right? Student ID, student name, age, course, grade, phone number. This is what you given, right, as part of your SQL statement. That means like you are successfully executed this SQL statement, and you could also see like that table got created in database. Got it? So now let's try see using show tables. Can I see now uh, under table list? Can I see my table now which I got created just now? Yes, we do. If you run the show tables statement, this basically returns as a one in a list which is called students, because the tables in MySQL so far what we have is like a students. If you create a one more table, then you can see like a same as a result set in this window. Got it? So now we know like this is a SQL statement for creating a table, and then once you get successfully executed this, that is what you can see. And then show table can also list your table name as part of your result set. Similar to database drop, right? We can also drop the table, because there will be like a practical example, right? So there are the scenarios where we may drop the table also. There are, so in that case, like how do I do that? Yes, the question here is that uh, what is the SQL statement that I can use to drop the table? Here it is. Drop table as a keyword, and then you list the table name. In our case is like students which I created, right? So drop table and then students is a table name. If I can execute this one, automatically it drops the table that you got created. After execution, you see that the student table got disappears for this. That means like now if you can run the show table, you have seen that empty result. This screen defects if I would run show table after drop the table, right? So then what I see in the result set is like nothing. It makes sense, right? Because you drop the table, so you should not expect anything listed in this result window, and hence I could see it. Got it? So I think we covered how to create a table, and how to draw the table, how to see a list of the tables, right? So come with us to the lab, so that we will see practically how this will be executed on workbench, and then see the result same. Let's have a practical experience.
Now we logged into my workbench. So this is my SQL workbench. Here now I am going to create a database with the syntax create schema. The database name I will be giving mySQL. Let's execute the command. After execution, the database gets created here. When you refresh it, you will be able to see the created database. Now we'll see the what way it is got created. This is mySQL tables, views, stored procedures and functions. This is how the database got created. After creating database, now let us see, is there any data like tables got created in the database. For that we have syntax show table. So if you execute show table, we will see whether any table is already in the database. After execution, we see no table in Madas bridge. No row returned. See. Now let us create a table. So to create a table, we have a syntax here, create table with the table name. Here we are taking students, and we also define what are the columns should be in the table and what type of column should be defined. Here under the student, we have student ID of type int, student name, varchar with the size, that means length, and age, which is int, and course, also varchar of certain length, grades, varchar, and phone number, int. Once you execute it, we will see what happens. See, table got created with the student name. Here we will see, after refreshing this, we will be able to see something different. When you click it, we see the table name student. We will go into it. We also could see the columns got created. Under column, we will see what are the columns we got created, which are we have given already. See, student ID, student name, age, course, grade, phone number, all are matched. That means the table got successfully created with the columns given columns. Now we see the show table again. We'll execute this show table. Let's see what happens. See, after execution the show table statement, we see the result window. There is a student table. So far we covered how to create table, how to see the list of tables. Now we will be seeing data in the table. Do you know what would be the SQL statement? For that, use select query. Select star from table with table name. Let us execute it. See the result? It returns none. This is what we expected, right? We have not inserted any data, so we have no data has returned to in the result. Now let us see how to drop the table. Here is the SQL statement. Drop table is a keyword with table name. After executing the statement, we see no table in the database. See the difference? See, the table has dropped. There is no table in the MySQL database. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, click on the bell icon, and please leave the comment. Happy learning. Thank you. Stay tuned to the upcoming sessions.